7 mirrorless tips. Have you just upgraded to mirrorless from digital SLR? Or are you using the same techniques to take photos with mirrorless like before? Mirrorless has changed my photography and is a tool which helped me and a lot of my students to get amazing photos we couldn't get before. And today I'm gonna share with you 7 mirrorless tips. I'm Tin Man Lee, a wildlife photographer. I am an invited judge for Nature Photographer of the Year. In the last few years, I have been judging over 100,000 photos. Yes, it's a lot of work, but rewarding. And I want to share some experience with you in the perspective of a judge, so you know how to utilize mirrorless camera to help you take photos that stand out. Tip number 1, low light photography. During low light condition, the autofocus capability and ISO performance of the newest DSLR and mirrorless cameras have improved significantly. You don't get a lot of noise, even at ISO 8000 or even above. And you can easily remove the noise with Topaz Denoise AI and other tools while retaining a lot of details in the image. But one thing that makes mirrorless super powerful is the electronic Viewfinder, abbreviated EVF, and the LCD screen. EVF allows what you see is what you get. And this is very important. If you change any settings such as shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, the brightness of the screen will adjust, so it will be very similar to your final image that can be darker, brighter, or the same as the scene in front of you. Compared to the DSLR days where you have to review photos in the LCD after you took the photos, and the brightness of the optical viewfinder in the DSLR is always the same brightness as the scene. So in a dark condition, for example, 40 minutes after sunset, mirrorless really makes a huge difference. Instead of exposing the photos to the same brightness of the scene in front of you, which is pretty dark, you can intentionally overexpose the scene by reducing the f-number, reducing the shutter speed, or increasing the ISO to make the EVF brighter, and as a result, the final photo is also gonna be brighter. Because of a brighter viewfinder, the autofocus or the iFocus continues to work. In the DSLR days, autofocus would have died and I would have to switch to manual focus, maneuvering the big lenses and all. Also, it's much easier to find the animal with the overexposed view in the viewfinder. I remember a few years ago, before mirrorless, I have trouble even finding a great horned owl that landed on the ground not too far from me, half an hour after sunset, because the optical viewfinder was very dark. Now the game has completely changed. 2 years ago, using the Sony A1, I was photographing a mother serval cat and her kitten. I was side by side with my good friend Federico Veronesi in Masai Mara, Kenya. The serval cat mother and kitten got less skittish after sunset. We were just waiting from a distance for hours, just when we almost lost hope and decided to just drive back to the camp. The mother serval cat and kitten came out in the clear, which usually doesn't happen in the daytime where they hide in tall grass. We were so excited, so we tried to look through the EVF and press the shutter to get as many photos when the serval kitten was playing with mom. We took hundreds of photos at a span of just a few minutes. The photos turned out really good with minimum noise. After we finished taking those photos and we put the camera down, smiled, high-fiving with each other, we were shocked to find out that it's completely dark outside. But looking through the viewfinder, it was still decently bright. It's absolutely crazy. Those photos wouldn't have been possible in the DSLR days. Not possible. Do you understand how big a deal that is for photography? Tip number 2. A lot of you may have heard or been using the subject eye tracking function of mirrorless camera, where the camera can lock focus with the eyes of humans, animals, and birds, and track the focus following the eyes continuously as the subject moves. Game changer for sure. Eye tracking is good 90% of the time. One time in Masai Mara again in Kenya, a cheetah cub just finished a big meal caught by her mom and was getting playful with a lot of energy during the nice evening soft light. The cheetah cub decided to put her paws on top of a 6 feet tall tree. The tree is good for photography as it has very few branches and no leaves. I knew she's gonna jump over it, and I'm gonna get a spectacular photo of cheetah in midair. Perfect foreground, perfect background. The moment she started to jump, the eye focus decided to jump as well and lock onto another tree on the right hand side where part of the tree trunk looked kind of like an eye. Story of my life. I kept tapping the shutter hoping it will come back to the cheetah for the autofocus, but the focus was still dead on that tree and I missed the whole jumping sequence when everybody else were nailing their shots and cheering quietly next to me. I can't blame the camera too much though, because it enabled me to get way more photos I couldn't get before. But eye tracking has its own weakness. So tip number 2 is to make sure to use eye focus, but also make sure you have a button to disable it or override it. Canon is best for that, where you can use the back button focus for eye tracking while the front shutter button to override it if you release the back button. Nikon and Sony, a bit more difficult to do it, but at least you can set up some custom function to switch to traditional focus with your chosen focus point. Tip number 3, now that we are on the eye tracking, let's talk more. Even though eye tracking is super powerful, we still have to provide a good environment for it to work best. The eye tracking works best if the background is not too distracting because those leaves, tall grass, contrasty area would put some stress on the camera trips on the intense computation to look for the eyes. So definitely pay more attention to the background and move around to look for a better angle. But if there are still tall grass and other distraction, you should switch to a smaller area to autofocus. Basically telling the camera, hey, don't look for the eyes through the whole frame. Just look for the eyes within the small square I set for you. And make sure the square covers the head of the subject as much as possible. And once the focus is locked on the eyes, don't let go of the focus button and don't let go of half pressing the shutter. Most mirrorless cameras allow you to toggle among multiple sizes of the square or rectangle. So depending on how messy the scene is, change the size of that area accordingly. The larger the area, the less work you have to do to align the area with the subject. The smaller the area, the more likely it will find the eyes, but it's more work for us. I am lazy. Always set a quick button to change the focus area from small spot to medium spot to large spot to zone to full to 3D. Those you can read the manual. For Sony, it's super easy. You can set a button where you can just press and it will toggle the focus area sizes. I love that feature on the Sony A1. For Nikon, I have to press one button, hold on to it, and then use my finger to dial it to change the focus area. At least for me, I don't know how to set a button to toggle focus area with Nikon. I don't know. If you know how, comment below. Tip number 4. I have a separate video that I dive deep into metering. Check the link below. But the key idea is turn on the highlight alert so that you can see in real time which part of your photos are blown out. Basically, it's like you go out at noon and look straight to the sun. Well, actually don't do that. It's gonna be too bright and you can't see anything for a few minutes. And some part of your eyes would seem to have small dark spots, like as if the image sensor in your eyes died. That is what blown out highlight is for cameras too. When you set the exposure of your camera too bright, the image sensor can't record any detailed information except pure white. And if a judge or an editor sees blown out highlights in the key area of your photos, the photos will have no hope. So turn on zebra if you are using Sony and set some custom value for highlight. And blinking zebra line will show up when you blow out the highlight. For Canon and Nikon, there is no real-time zebra, so I don't like it, but you can still turn on the histogram to track blown out highlights. It's not ideal, but better than nothing. Tip number 5. If you are an advanced photographer, you may know about the concept of expose to the right, meaning to try to expose the bright area of the image all the way to the edge of the histogram. It may be too complicated, don't worry. Well, my advice is don't expose to the extreme right. Maybe leave 1/3 of a star from the most overexposed setting without blowing out the highlight. What I found is that the histogram and the zebra for mirrorless is quite different from DSLR. In DSLR, even if you see a bit of blinkies, blown out highlights in your LCD when you review the photos, you can still recover it in post-processing, but not mirrorless. If you see blinkies, in most cases, it's too late. I got burned before, pun intended, so be a bit more conservative on this. Tip number 6. Electronic viewfinder and LCD both drains batteries. Taking videos, especially 4K or 8K, drains even more batteries. Imagine you are waiting for a cheetah to hunt. They can jump out from the tall grass at any second. Maybe the wait is just 1 second, maybe it's 5 hours. And you want the autofocus to be engaged on the eyes of the cheetah the whole time because they are just so super fast. So you have to keep pressing the shutter button, looking through the EVF or the LCD. And you can literally see the battery percentage drops in real time. It's scary. So mirrorless uses up batteries faster. One time in Alaska, it was cold, so it's also bad for the battery. My battery was completely used up in my Canon R5 after some nice encounter with a bear and her cub. I was like, crap. Luckily, I have another 2 charged batteries in my pocket. I always came prepared. So no worries. I put a new one in, 0%. That one must have also been used up. Thank God I have the second battery. I put in the second one, also 0 batteries. Maybe they got drained out somehow. I remember I charged them before. So another lesson is always charge the batteries again the night before and check to make sure it's 100% before going out. Anyways, of course, when I'm out of battery, the bear action gets really good. My heart dropped. Fortunately, I have a second camera body, so I quickly pulled the battery out from that one and put it in the one I'm using with the longer lens and survived with 5% battery on that photo section. So tip number 6 is bring more batteries. Unless it's a Z9 Nikon, where I haven't had a time where I use up one whole battery in one day. Well, I would still suggest bringing 1 extra battery for Nikon Z9, but those are super heavy. I would bring 4 extra batteries for Canon R5 or Sony A1 if I'm going out one full day of photography. Before I go to tip number 7, this video is brought to you by Tin Man Lee. Yes, that's me. Feel free to check out some of my best courses on mastering post-processing and photo techniques below. I have hundreds of students now, so join this fun community to live and breathe photography. Tip number 7, pro tip. Now that mirrorless no longer has the super slow, sluggish LCD with mirror lockup and all those complicated stuff like the DSLR days, the mirrorless LCD is your friend. There is no lag with very nice resolution. Also, most of the mirrorless LCD, you can flip it out at an angle, so get your face away from the viewfinder. Try different height by moving your camera up and down and look at the LCD to compose the photos. For example, like the medium format days where you look down at the camera. Hasselblad, anyone? Camera and lens are so light these days. Even the super telephoto lens is just maybe a pound heavier than some of the zoom lenses, so it's easy to maneuver at any angle. So tip number 7, just flip the LCD up or down and use iFocus, lock the focus, move the camera around for creative composition, and take some awesome photos. So if you like this video, you gotta check out my metering video here. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave your comments below if you have any questions or techniques on mirrorless and suggestions for future topics. See you guys next time.